Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Game Vault podcast stream. I'm your host, Mark. It's time for the news hour. We are here right on the tail end of May 4th. First show in May. As usual, for the next 3 weeks here, we will be coming to you between 10:30 and 11. Just because I will like to do a little review of Last of Us. Spoiler filled, we'll do our normal 2 hands up. When I start, I will try and not talk with my hands. I had heard some feedback of people being confused. When I start talking with my hands, I'm going to keep them below the desk so that I don't talk with my hands during the Last of Us segment. And then we'll be talking in very vague terms about Clair Obscur, Expedition 33. I can easily say right off the bat, as of right now, my game of the year. It does so much right, and it's ridiculous that it's as good as it is. So let's get into it. Remember, I'm going to put 2 hands up. When the 2 hands go up, that means the Last of Us spoilers have started. There's also a time for me to time signature it so that I can put the little note in the episode stuff for YouTube. And obviously for audio listeners as well, so that they can know exactly when I will be doing it. So for my audio editing, it'll be a little bit of silence while I have the hands up, so I'll get to see that. So just walking you through the process here. So, all right, here we go. All right, so episode 4 here took big deviation. If I'm gonna have to go back and look to see where certain things happened that I think should have happened already. But I'm not sure if they just took it out because a lot of it, I was talking with a coworker who's also played the games and is watching the show as well, and just thinking about some of the things that happen are just gameplay moments. Like, you don't really need them for a narrative television show. So it's clearly why some of the things are missing. For sure here, there's a whole part where they get captured by the WLF. I don't know if that happens after this moment or before it. I thought they went to the news station after they got caught. Maybe it was before. I'm just a little vague on that, but they definitely condensed the exploration between you getting to Seattle and then getting the theater, which is your home base, for Last of Us in part 2 there. But they hit all the key points for that. They get the funny thing saying key points. They get the optional scene of Ellie singing "Take on Me," which is probably the best moment of that whole thing, and so weird that it's behind an optional thing that you can't really find. They skip over the bank. The bank is really just a gameplay scene, but it's one of the more memorable things of that moment. I think the most notable thing they skipped that I'm surprised they didn't, I'm surprised they did skip it, is when you first show up to Seattle, one of the first things you have to get by is a gate that has the word "fuck Fedra" spray painted on it, and it just becomes like a running joke, and she marks her map and calling it the "fuck Fedra" fence. And I thought a little thing like that from the game would have made it through, but I guess they didn't want to that whole section is just about learning how to do generators again and stuff like that. It's a little tutorial in that in that point in the game. So they basically cut down all of that small stuff that would have been a bunch of like going around fighting wolves and infected and things like that. And they get you to the record store, and then from the record store you get to the TV station, and then from the TV station, you get to the subway thing where a horde comes. I think it also skips a big enemy that I think they're going to introduce next week, because big part of that enemy is something they have not introduced in the show yet. I'm very excited by it. It's fun that they're using those little tendril things, because that's a great way to, have the horde come. And it's just as scary in terms of they run through the subway cars, and part of me is like, oh yeah, anybody like born after the apocalypse ended, or like the ages of Ellie and Dina, like 7 years after everything went down, would have I guess they kind of know from books what a subway is. I don't know if that's ever been made clear. I was just thinking, like, you take certain things for granted that people know, and you don't think about it. Like, somebody born, say the apocalypse happened in 2003, as in the show. Somebody born, they're 19, it's born in 2010. Who have never ridden a subway or a train or, an airplane. They might read about it in books and stuff, but, it's got to be especially for people from Jackson. I don't know if she was born in Jackson or got there or whatever. In Dina, we know about Ellie, but I don't even know if they did anything in Boston. Like, just the idea of, seeing a train station like that could have been something they've never seen before. They make a big deal about the mall in Boston. But it was just something that popped in my head. There's probably things going, no, you idiot. They would know about it. But it's because she makes a point of not knowing about airplanes. Or never seeing an airplane before. But then again, she knows about space. It's just weird. Sorry, weird tangent there. It's my ADHD brain coming off there. As I'm battling with Game Vault Cat, if she's just trying to get into anything below here. So they go through the whole thing. They get chased by the horde, and the big change from this episode from the game is that in the game they're going through a spore-infested place, which spores have not been shown yet on this show. And Ellie's mask breaks, and then she doesn't wear a mask while her and Dina are escaping. And that's how she reveals to Dina that she is immune. In this case, Dina Caesar gets bit because she puts her arm out to protect Dina from getting bit. And they do what probably should have happened in the game. Dina pulls a gun on her, and it's sort of like ready to, have to do it to survive, If she turns, I'm dead. And then they sort of have that conversation. And then this is when they reveal that she's pregnant, which was something I was a little worried they weren't going to do, because they hadn't revealed another pregnancy on the show, and I thought, like, they can't skip this. This is a very major point of this plot. But then, they showed the morning sickness stuff, and I got good. It got okay, but they revealed it here just as it's revealed in the game, area-wise, but in a totally different thing. And then this one it leads to the, the intimate scene between Bella and Isabella, Merced, Dina, and Ellie, where this would have happened like 2 episodes ago, game-wise, but I was hearing some of the explanations after the show as to why they put it here. And the idea that they were just so overcome with emotion because, You know, when Dina watches her play the guitar, it's like when she finally realizes she's fallen in love with Ellie. And then seeing Ellie die in front of her eyes in her mind when she got bit. And then finding out that no, she's not dead. And she's also pregnant. Yeah, and it's just, and then that's when they just get physical and just have their first encounter. So it makes more sense, I guess, from an emotional point of view than putting it here than just the we're stuck in a grow house, might as well have sex sort of thing from the game. But leaving that all in line was great. I like the idea of they're starting to mix some of the WLF stuff in here, but they're doing enough of it so that you know what Ellie's up against, more so than showing interactions between the WLF. Like, they do an origin story for Isaac, which I think you only found out about in notes in there. I don't know if there was a DLC for Last of Us 2. It's been 5 years. And 2020, whole different beast of a time period where it just didn't happen. That time never happened. That was it's such a weird time. So they showed a little bit of Isaac. I remembered he was ex-Fedra, but the scene they showed, it was pretty badass, even though he's an evil dude. Where he just gets out of the car, makes a deal with, I guess, who was running the Wolves at the time, and just ends up throwing a grenade into the back seat with a bunch of Fedra people in it, shutting it and locking the door on them. Rest in peace, Josh Peck, who played one of the soldiers in there. They also did a good job showing you how fucked up Fedra was. That the people called them voters because they mocked them because they took away their right to vote. So calling them voters was a way to mock them. And they also tell a story about how much of a fucking idiot this one general was. And how vicious and mean he was because of how stupid he was. Doesn't sound like someone else we know that's sort of running things in our current day and age. But yeah, and then they showed a torture scene, which I'm glad they didn't skimp out on with the showing how dehumanizing it was, with the Seraphite being completely naked during it, and just had, stuck to their guns there, and the obvious implications of what real world event they're talking about there is true, but it's I don't think it's, maybe I'm naive. I don't think it's intentional in the fact that they're trying to show a both sides thing. I think it's partially somebody drew from experience. Probably Neil. I think Neil Druckmann is Jewish. Maybe he isn't even Israeli. And just, drew the idea of a military country and a religious, resistance there, whatever you want to call, saying, oppression, and people being oppressed, and just sort of took the gem of that conflict that he knows about and moved it into this game, in a way that people, I think it's more so showing how people would react the same way in a zombie apocalypse. Like, there would still be a wolf that would be oppressing a group of people, because they think differently than them, because it doesn't change. Okay. Yeah, so Night Duck corrected me, but yeah, I think to skip over that in this show would have been, it would have been Neil if admitting that his thoughts were wrong, which could have been a great thing to have a change of heart of in 5 years. But if you just skipped over it or glossed over it, then it doesn't. What do you replace it with? It's like it to do an example that's not as deep politically, as I don't like to get too deep here. We can make other podcasts for that if you want to hear my opinions on those things. It reminded me a lot if you would have replaced the idea, like the Seraphites with somebody else, or, well, you couldn't replace the wolves with somebody else because Abby's got to be a wolf and all that. If you replace the Seraphites with just some generic or some other kind of resistance group, it very much would have felt like the New Red Dawn, where they replaced the Chinese with or the Soviets with the North Koreans, because they were going to use the Chinese, but then they got worried about being able to release the movie in China. So, you know, you get to that factor where you very much go, oh, I know why you changed this, and, you know, and your explanation for the difference doesn't work anymore. But I think next season is going to be a lot more into that, so we'll see how far they push it next year. This was more about introducing the conflict to Dina and Ellie, who have probably no idea about even... I doubt they're even taught what was going on pre-2003 in Gaza and the West Bank and all that over in Palestine. So, you know, I doubt that was in the Fedra, you know, curriculum to teach young kids. Or even how many books would have survived the apocalypse for them to learn. So this is the first time seeing a conflict like this, up close and personal, or, you know, because all their conflicts have been between raiders and infected and them, you know. You know, it very much still has the idea of us versus them, walls keep, you know, people out and stuff like that. But I agree, like, Dina's reaction in the episode, when they find the disemboweled wolves hanging in the TV studio, where she just goes, "What the fuck is wrong with Seattle?" Very much sums up that they haven't seen this level of violence towards, like, two groups. You know, killing kids and then disemboweling people. Yeah, so they touched on that. I don't know how much further they are going to do it this season. I think they move right on to the, you know, hunting down Nora and stuff like that, and if the previews say anything. And it looks like next week they're going to introduce the spores to the show. So we'll see how they do that, because I remember it was either Craig or Neil said in the podcast last year that the reason they didn't put it on in the show to begin with was the idea of where do the spores stop. Like in the show, it's like behind a closed door or down a hole. It's like, why wouldn't the spores come up through the hole or through the cracks in the doors? Like, where, you know, where does it end? And it's hard to show that in a TV series. So I'm wondering how they're going to introduce that. So I'm excited for it. But overall, I think the episode did its job. And I think the show has been not as... There's so much more controversial material to work with in season 2 that I think it's not... I hope the final episode sort of stick the landing. They've done a really good job with the Dina-Ellie, sort of that relationship. But everything else in the world around it, it's been outside of, Gale, hasn't really done a good job of anything else, really. It's been okay. For me, I would love to get opinions of people that didn't play the game, and are just watching the show. Because maybe I have some expectations of things, and that's why certain things aren't hitting. That might be hitting for somebody that didn't even know what the other end could have been. So, yeah, the next 3 episodes are going to be her hunting down the rest of the wolves, and the end is going to end where I think it's going to end. It'll be a pretty baller season finale. Yeah, and there's one other quick thing I had. Isabella Marcet is at least going to be nominated for an Emmy for this, for supporting. If there's a supporting Emmy nomination, I think the job she has done on this show is beyond expectations for it, because the Dina character, while okay, she's made it dynamic in this, and sort of, yeah, I hope she gets a little bit of respect, because it's a really good job what she's done. I make the description of, don't talk with hands, Mark. I make the thing that every time she walks on screen, you're just magnetized to her. Like, your eyes go there, and the performance makes you want to watch. It's just sort of like in Queen's Gambit, I always said that the reason why that show is great is because I know she's probably in every single scene, but there is not a point when Anya Taylor-Joy's on screen in the Queen's Gambit where you're bored. And I feel like Isabel Marcet's doing the exact same thing as Dina. That's why I didn't like the second episode so much, because there's so little of her in it. And little of Bella, less of Bella than probably. But yeah, there's that's my one prediction. I think she'll at least get nominated, or she should get nominated for supporting. I guess she'd be supporting. I wouldn't give her a main actress award or anything like that. I don't know what screen time or what number of episodes. I don't know how you decide that on TV. But yeah, so that was Last of Us. I'm going to put up my hands now to let the video viewers know if they muted it, to know to come back. Okay. Yeah, so on to episode 5. And for me, the only other thing I've been doing is playing Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And the times I'm not playing it, I am playing NHL 25 while having on my second screen, specifically Jess Capricorn, playing through Clair Obscur Expedition 33. So that game has been my life for about 2 weeks now. Or maybe in a week. I don't even know how long it's been out. Yeah. So the fun part about, before I get into the game, the fun part about the watching through Jess's stream, besides the fact that I put this on Blue Sky, if you follow me, my personal Twitter, I don't do much skating on Blue Sky or anything, or any social media ever on the personal channel. A lot of times I'm just replying to friends. So, but this was me actually putting a regular thing out. I myself, in a former life, like Christ, almost 20 years ago now, I was a journalist, mainly sports journalist, but I did some news writing as well. And Jess, just Capricorn, used to write for a science magazine. I forget what it now. It's yeah, I forget. She wrote for one, like the big science magazine. Yeah, so journalist as well. But on that beat side. So there's a moment in the game where you walk up and you meet a guy named Cyril, and it's just the introduction thing. So no spoilers, Night Duck, if you haven't played yet. So you meet a person named Cyril, and it's basically just introducing you to the fact that you have some choices and you have conversation things and all. Just what a prologue is supposed to do. No. What I'm saying is we had a kinship watching that scene, because you go up to Cyril, and Cyril is like the journalist for Lumiere, or one of the journalists for the newspaper in Lumiere. And he asked the person you're playing, I'm trying to be vague, the person you're playing at that point, what she thinks a great headline is, and gives her a choice of 2 headlines and then a joke answer. And I don't know if I expressed this on the actual video for the episode, but me and Jess had the same internal reaction as former journalists, and looked at those 2 headlines and goes, those are fucking terrible headlines. Like, it's obvious that the person that wrote that that line of dialogue in the thing has never had to write a headline before, because they're so long and don't even get to the point of what they're trying to say. The headlines don't tell me anything about what kind of story he's writing, and literally, I internalized it probably and didn't want to say it too much on air. And she immediately expressed it. So I, mentioned her in Blue Sky and was like, I love that scene because as a former journalist, I had the same exact reaction to that scene. And, yeah, it was fun. It was, that's been the fun part, watching through her stream. But it's actually the opposite of what Night Duck mentioned in the chat. I know I don't have the chat up while Big Mark's here. But he made the joke of claiming you taught her everything she knows. No. She's actually taught me about some hidden things that I had to go back and get. So it's been a blessing. I'm more watching for her reactions because she's very good at the reaction stuff and doesn't come off as fake or anything like that, which is my instant turnoff. I have 2 instant turnoffs while watching streams. It's somebody that's definitely fake doing their reactions to things, being over dramatic or over. I can almost tell it immediately. And the other thing is a person that keeps complaining about not understanding how to do something when the game puts it literally on the screen in front of them. This is for people that have listened to the other episodes about a Final Fantasy X streamer I was watching that was like, I don't know what cheer does. And literally in that game, if you highlight cheer, at the top of the screen in the battle, it says what it does. This was like 4 hours into the game, she said this. After multiple battles with Titus. Or Titus. Anyway, those are the 2 main things that turn me off from streamers. Or even YouTubers. So, but Jess is very authentic, and I think it more comes from the idea that, nothing's very much over the top. It's exaggerated a little bit because you got to exaggerate. That's why I'm kind of an okay streamer, or maybe even poor. It's because I'm not over the top with reactions. I do like let's go and stuff when we win, and I get excited when I win a big battle or something, but not in the dramatic moments. Like, I've been mostly quiet through most of the dramatic moments, and just going, damn, this is good, without not doing a, what? Oh my god, no! Reactions. But anyway, overall thoughts on the game. Love the battle system. Battle system is great. Another difference I find, not to keep bringing her up, but in Jess's stream is, I try to parry almost all the time because it gives you an extra attack if you get it right, and dodging does not. Even though you can get AP from dodging if you have a certain thing on, but a parry will always give you AP and also give you an extra attack. So while I am okay at it, I try to do it all the time, to the point that I have Pictos and Luminaires, whatever. That are more situated towards counters and parries and stuff like that. Total change from other games that I've played in the past. I've never been a parry. I've been a dodge and go in sort of person in my Dark Souls, but I love the way the parry system works here. The instant feedback when you get it correct. And knowing that there's really no difference between a perfect dodge and a parry, why not go for the parry and get the extra attack? That's essentially been my thing. It sometimes makes some battles last a very long time, but I've been having a lot of fun with that. Another great thing they're doing, dialogue is fantastic. There are some cheesy hiccups here and there, but again, you're writing, and in some cases maybe English is not is probably not their first language, so some of the translation stuff may make some things a little bit cheesier than probably when they're speaking French. But I'm engaged every time there's a cutscene. You can tell it from the streams because I just go quiet. I'm in. I'm so in. And the other thing that makes my cutscenes amazing is the costumes. Putting ridiculous costumes on people for dramatic cutscenes has become a pastime of mine. So it's been a lot of fun doing that. And in vague terms, world map is a great idea. What they're doing with the world map, separating it into the zones, is what you do with a game this size with this many people working on it. It's exactly what you need to do. Is how they do it here, and some of the stuff they do is fantastic in terms of that. And then they have not introduced a character yet that I have either been annoyed by or has thought was poorly written. Every single one. I mean, some of the NPCs, like you go, all right, enough of this. The NPCs are basically starting to be the same. Essentially, this one race of people in there. But then they hit you with the really great versions of those people, and it's fantastic. I'm in Act 2. So, we're on our way. But the game's great. It has great emotional highs, great emotional lows. It is the perfect blend of I'm trying to figure out what that second word is, and it's really too late. I don't know how far you are in the game to know. Oh, okay. It's Jonathan. I appreciate you letting me know you're fucking with me. Because I'm trying so hard right now to not say anything spoilery to you, and I was assuming that you were trying to let me know where you were in the game by saying that, and I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. Grenouille. But anyway, that's really good. Yeah, the Magnificent Frog. Yeah. That's good. Well, Chrono Trigger has a Grenouille Magnifique. But yeah, all the characters have been fantastic. All the main characters. Like I said, some of the NPCs get a little repetitive, but anyone that's like a main character, that isn't just referred to as somebody merchant or somebody fighter or something, people that have names. Anybody has a name has been fantastic. Even the journals that you find, everybody in there is a different type of personality and really comes through and doesn't seem generic. So it just makes me excited to see what they'll do with another game, whether or not it's a sequel to this or something else. They just seem to be really good at making character interactions seem natural. There's one I just got to that I don't know if it's way ahead of Wait, no, don't worry about interrupting. That's why you're here in chat. To not make this a monologue. That I don't know if Jonathan's at yet, but it's an introduction of a character late, and there's just an exchange between him and one of the main people, and it just made me literally laugh out loud on the stream at it. So look forward to that. I don't know how far you are in the game. But yeah, so far it's my game of the year. There's only a certain couple of games that I know that are coming out this year now that GTA 6 is in. I don't know if I even pulled that story, but we'll talk about it anyway if I didn't. GTA 6 being pushed back to 2026. Really, unless if something pops up out of the blue, which has happened. I mean, I always talk about Oxenfree. I played it in December. Blastro was the same way. Something that might pop up out of the blue. But right now, it just looks like Death Stranding 2, Metal Gear Delta are really the only things, especially since I'm not getting a Switch 2, so Donkey Kong doesn't come in, or Mario Kart doesn't come in to my thing. But it's been really, really good. And while Doom the Dark Ages may be really, really good, I'm not much of a Doom guy to where I think that would push past this. This would have to get to the level I keep mentioning, sort of the stumble that Metaphor does at the end of its game, that sort of gave the opening for other games to jump ahead of it. I just hope this game doesn't do that. I'm really interested in where it goes, and yeah. So, the only other game I've been playing NHL 25. I love it. It does enough. I mean, there's certain times I get frustrated, like most people do with sports games, that play enough of them. Is something will happen in the game, and then I'll just, like, in hockey especially, like, I go to poke check a puck, and then it trips the opponent, I get a penalty, and I just drop the control. I'm like, what the... and the game still plays while I'm being upset about the penalty. But yeah, the biggest addition was that little target underneath the players that lets you know they're ready for a one-timer. I think they put it into 24. I might have been in 24 and I didn't remember it, but it's really been prominent here and has been really a way I've been setting up some power play goals, essentially. So yeah, it's been a big addition. Yeah, there's not much, even though I would love to play, a couple other games. Holding off on them a little bit here. Trying to be good about it. But yeah, so I'm glad that Expedition 33 came out on multi-platforms. So, yeah, I think that is all for games. Yeah, we talked for about a half hour or more. Mainly Last of Us, and I didn't even deep dive into Expedition 33. That could have been the rest of the episode, if we went for a spoiler thing. But yeah, let's move on to the news. So our big story here, which will take up a good bit of this first part here, is that fandom has essentially, seemingly literally out of nowhere last week, it happened on Friday, like Thursday or Friday, and I just put it up to, like, it's not gonna be a big deal, don't need to worry about it, to me diving deeper into it, because I had a lot of shit going on last week with softball stuff with the oldest niece, that by the time Monday and Tuesday came, realized it was a much bigger deal, the giant bomb has finally exploded. Now, I think it's still going to stick around, and you might have some of for those of you that have been following Giant Bomb, you might still have your Jeff Bacalars and Jan Ochoas and, some of the people from fandom that have shown up on there. But a good chunk of the team is, like, gone. And I think a big blow-up happened. A boss of a boss or something. Be a lot better if, research most of this on your own, because a lot of it's speculation. So I'm just going to get to the really generic points and then just give my thoughts on it. A boss of a boss wanted, from the rumors wanted Giant Bomb to go to PG-13 from R-rated in terms of cursing and stuff like that, and sexual innuendos and all, double entendres mostly, for brand safety. And they got a whole letter about it, and then they literally pulled a bombcast went up and they pulled it because they literally made fun of the letter that fandom sent them about what brand safety meant, and so fandom had them pull it, and they're now, even though they got approval to put it back up, they're not putting it back up. But yeah, just the whole thing of you can only say certain words, you can only say fuck in a non-sexual way once on a stream, and just all this, like, really, really strange stuff. Like, I would have more respect, not that I have any respect for fandom or any of these giant things that take over media corporations or media entities. I would have more respect if they wanted them to go PG. Like, no cursing, no drinking, No double entendres, just strict PG. I'll be like, okay, I can see that. But going the PG-13 route is a middle ground that just screams that someone didn't know what they were doing. So what we know so far, or as much as I was able to research on Friday, I have not checked it out too much this weekend. Been playing too much Expedition 33. Is that Jeff Grubb essentially got fired, or well, probably just got fired because he put up a big stink about it. Too much oversight pressure from fandom. Dan Reichert, who's on there, is also going to not appear on any Giant Bomb stuff while still employed until they stop meddling on the site. Nikki Grayson, who I've come to love on there, is essentially gone. Turbo Sean, who was their second video editor, podcast producer, is gone. Guy from GamesBeat, Mike Minotti, he's no longer going to appear because he's really good friends and has podcasts with Jeff Grubb. So it's like 4 or 5 of the people that are regulars on the show are just gone. The only 2 regulars left are, Dan technically, but is Jeff Bacalar and Jan Ochoa. Jan's basically their main video and podcast producer. And then Jeff is the head of basically the top dog at Giant Bomb after Gerstmann left. Everyone else that has been filling in and helping has probably been, essentially people from GameSpot. So it's been interesting. There's some good podcasts out there. The VGBs, which is where Nikki Grayson's other podcast is. I had Gerstmann on talking about it the day it happened. So some interesting insights and behind the scenes stuff that I don't know if Jeff has said before publicly that wasn't behind a Patreon wall. So it's a really good interview to go watch there. And then, just things on internet. And Dan Reichert did a stream that he erased, basically, talking about how upset he was and, PG-13 brand safety and all that. So we'll see where it goes. They have not missed a Bombcast ever. So it's interesting to see if there will be one on Tuesday. They had 888 of them in a row without missing one. That wasn't like if I think they still taped them and put them up on Christmas and stuff like that. Oh, no, they would do the Game of the Years. So I don't think they have missed one since they became Giant Bomb. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday. But the main thing that started it all was last Thursday, or 2 Thursdays ago, not the Thursday before that. They just were told to stop live streaming. No more live streams. Right after they did the voicemail, or before they were supposed to do the voicemail dump truck, which is their thing where they really go off the rails in terms of stories and language and stuff like that. And then it snowballed into this, where it's probably the end of the company as you know it. They call it a strategic reset and realignment of media brands. Essentially means C-suite people don't know what the fuck they're doing, essentially. Because that leads to another story that I couldn't find. It was so hard. Like, this is I think it's Kotaku. I got this one. I normally get most of my stories from IGN because they're pretty good, like, there's a word for it, but they get all the stories are there. I've been trying to go to Game Informer and things like that, but they don't have as much variety, and some of it is, too hyper focused, and but they had nothing on this. I didn't want to go to GameSpot, obviously, for obvious reasons. So I find this on Kotaku, and the other one, which was also not on IGN, is that Polygon is essentially done, which was probably, my second go-to in terms of if I ever read anything on the internet. you know, usually had, anytime I needed a deep dive into something, I'd usually end up going to Polygon, or something like that. So basically, I think the whole staff is gone. Chris Plant is trying to do get a podcast and all off the ground. Who's basically the editor of what's it called, Polygon. A lot of their videos have been really good, quirky, off the wall stuff. But yeah, so both of these two media giants are, done. And, just in time for the Switch 2 to being released. And thankfully, leading into our next story, they don't have to worry about all this lack of media coverage for when Grand Theft Auto 6 is now delayed until May 2026. So, a shock to some, not so much a shock to the people that have been plugged in from what I could read. So the statement from Rockstar, they delayed the game to May 26, 2026, when it was supposed to come out in the fall, which is a relief to, I guess, a lot of people that wanted to put games out in the fall. But their statement is, we are very sorry that this is later than you expected. The interest and excitement surrounding a new Grand Theft Auto has been truly humbling for our entire team. We want to thank you for your support and your patience as we work to finish the game. With every game we have released, the goal is always to try and exceed your expectations, and Grand Theft Auto 6 is no exception. We hope you understand that we need this extra time to deliver at the level of quality you expect and deserve. We look forward to sharing more information with you soon. Yeah. So with this, yeah, then GTA is about to be $90. I think I have a story later on that breaks a little bit of my rule that I'm doing, but I think it's more we have to let consumers know, and it's the only reason I'm going to mention it later. That has something to do with game pricing, but yeah, this is, that's the real Grand Theft. Correct, Night Duck. So it would have been great to see, because apparently he did a small video about it, but like Jeff Grubb kind of had this news but couldn't break it because they told him to stop streaming. So fandom, being fucking idiots, stopped them from being the ones to break this story before Rockstar broke it. So that's what we mean by Polygon and Giant Bomb going away, as being a really bad, terrible thing for video games. Because they both had great talent that could break stories and could write really deeply about games, and they're just gone now. As you know them, it'll take a while to build back up if they ever do. But so if you were planning on dedicating your whole fall to GTA 6 through your winter break, you have to put that on hold, because it'll be your summer break next year that you will be able to do that. And the funniest thing, which it mentions in the story here, if you're watching where my mouse is, if you can see that. I don't know if that pops up on screen. The funniest thing about the release date is not that they, and have a good night, Madam Militia. Not that they delayed the game to when they delayed, but the fact that they took it completely out of the 2026 fiscal year by putting it in May. Like, if you delayed it to March, I'm like, alright, you just need time to polish the game, you need whatever. I don't see the reason why you take it out of the fiscal year. Unless there's a lot that needs to be done. Because dropping it in March, no matter where you drop GTA, it's going to be huge. If I had Take-Two stock, I would be selling it, at least for the time being. Because if they haven't already taken a hit, the fact of moving this game out of a fiscal year is going to scare some people. But yeah, I'm sure Take-Two's ecstatic about that. Going into a 2027 fiscal year. But yeah, so GTA has been delayed. Moving on, we'll probably quickly go through these stories. And what I mentioned, as I mentioned previously, because of the BDS boycott of Microsoft and Xbox stuff, we normally will not be covering news about Microsoft or the what's it called, or Game Pass stuff at all. But I felt that this story was way too much consumer focus for our listeners out there if you hadn't been paying attention. Not that if you're doing the boycott that you would even be paying this stuff, but this needs to be reported on. The Xbox has raised the prices in Canada and the US for stuff. They I think I'm gonna scan real fast here. So they said without saying it that the reason they're doing this is because of the tariffs. It says, we understand that these changes are challenging and that they were made with careful consideration given market conditions and the rising cost of development. Looking ahead, we continue to focus on offering more ways to play games across any screen and ensuring values for Xbox players. And what has changed in market conditions in the last couple months? But the tariffs. So, obviously, that's why. And just to let you know, for the audio listeners out there not watching, I'll read through what is the pricing stuff. So, Series S, the 512 version, the smallest you can get storage-wise, that is now $379, up from $299. The Series S 1 terabyte is $429, up from $349. Series X digital is $549, up from $44.99 or $449. A Series X is $599, up from $499. A Series X 2 terabyte Galaxy Special Edition is $729, up from $599. An Xbox wireless controller, just the regular core one, is $64.99 now. A wireless colored one is $69.99. I think those are relatively the same. I don't think it went up too much, if at all. Wireless controllers, special edition, $79.99. Wireless controller limited edition, that's $89.99, up from $79.99. Elite wireless Series 2 is $149, up from $139. Elite wireless controller Series 2. I don't know the difference between core and full, but that's $199 now, up from $179. The headset is $64.99, and the wireless headset is $119, up from $109. Now, yeah, that is the stuff they've put down in on paper there, but the warning is that prices could jump up to $80, $90. So the joke about GTA being $90 might not be much of a joke on Xbox. But the strangest thing about this is that Microsoft has been a company with Xbox that has been preaching and advertising, and they have a fucking marketing campaign for it, that anything can be an Xbox. Like, they're telling you can get Game Pass or whatever you do, remote play, through PC, whatever. Anything can be an Xbox. You don't need these consoles. I don't know why you raise the prices. Unless if the tariffs are really hitting them that hard that they need to. People that don't... The way consoles used to work in the past, and I'm sure Metamolition Night Duck can back me up on this, is the game would release, I'm just going to use round numbers. Console will release at, that's true. It's an excuse because they can raise prices. From a business standpoint, to me, outside of the price gouging, it makes no sense is because the way the industry used to run is that Game System X was released. Sorry, using X. Game System X was released for $300. A little bit higher than probably they need it to be. It would break even because you mostly would lose money on the console, make it up on software. It's how back in the day it used to work. So Game System X sells for $300. Get a bunch of the early adopters, get the dumbasses that pre-order on day one, get them, and then say a year or two later, they drop down to, oh, I will check out that Jeff Grubb, and you out there too, check out that Jeff Grubb video on this. I will watch it afterwards too. But then after about a year or two, they would drop it down to $200 to get the secondary people, the ones who couldn't afford it out front, but now you have a good lineup of games, and you can pull them in with a $200 console, and they can buy all the backlog games and all the new stuff coming, and you have your typical, I call them the core gamers. Your middle, like, that's your biggest chunk. That's the core audience that's going to buy the majority of your consoles. Is going to be that middle chunk of people when you reduce the price a little bit. At least back in the day. I think this is the first generation where this is not happening. And then after like 5-6 years, when you're nearing the end of the life cycle, you drop it to $100. You get all the casuals. You get the parents that have a 4-year-old that just want to get them a video game system. And then you flesh out your inventory by selling them for $100. And then you start up the cycle again with the next system. Raising prices, that's a whole new animal. And I don't see, especially if they're getting their ass kicked by Sony, how this helps at all in the market share. But I guess it's greed. It's corporate greed. Fuck corporations. Essentially. But yeah. Yeah, so. That's true. Hobbies changed with the lockdown. Oh, I saw a great thing. This is totally off tangent. Might not be anything. I think it might have been Gersman on the VGB's podcast, which I would recommend anybody listening out there. I know it's the second time I mentioned it. It's a really good interview. Jeff's great when he's being deep thought and intellectual about the business. He said, I think it was him. It was somebody else who said, the problem with a lot of these games that are coming out since the pandemic is a lot of people are wondering why they're not hitting like Animal Crossing and all those other games that hit big during the pandemic. Like, they don't understand why games aren't hitting like that. Those games, like, why can't you release an Animal Crossing like that? Not realizing that it was a completely different time and that was a weird situation. It's an outlier on a graph that you should just ignore. Just ignore game purchases and game playing habits in 2020. But for some reason, the dumb C-level people, C-suite people, can't let it go. Because it was such an anomaly that made them so much fucking money that they don't understand that it was an outlier and they shouldn't expect that anymore. But yeah, he has a better explanation for me than me with that. Alright, so moving on. Final terrible news. EA cut around 300 roles, including roughly 100 at Respawn, and reportedly canceled a Titanfall extraction shooter. Not that the world needed another extraction shooter, but the less people, or the less people at Respawn, the less likely a Titanfall 3 is coming. So just bad news all around after all the other stuff going on, that they, just cut this job and axed this game. The only caveat I ever give, like a 2% when shit like this happens, is we don't know if the game was terrible. Like, it could have been wrought with problems and was just becoming a money pit. Yeah, exactly. It's a really weird thing. But yeah, it seems like a lot of times with these big companies and people that work for bigger companies which I have not. I think my closest was working for the big giant movie theater chain when I was a teenager. It's that they will cut things that are popular because it's the easy things to cut when something else isn't doing well, you know. So while all of Respawn games are usually well received and great, some other arm of EA isn't selling as well, like FC 25 didn't get as many Ultimate Team people, so they're not making as much money over there. Oh, we got to cut from Respawn because it's easy to do that. But yeah, so unfortunate layoffs are still happening. Hopefully union comes soon to game developers. On to better news. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 sold 1 million copies in 3 days. I don't know if I put this on the podcast last week. I saw it again going through. It's just amazing. I don't care if I'm repeating it. The only reason I keep bringing it up is that I was just so worried when Oblivion Remaster got announced like 2 days before this got released, and I'm like, motherfucker. You know, this game could be incredible, and it's just going to get overshadowed by Oblivion, was my fear when that announcement dropped. We were talking about it on the Final Fantasy VI stream. You know, the day before I started playing, it's like I was super worried. Maybe even been the Monday stream, or it was some time there. Yeah, I thought it would sink into Oblivion. That is correct, Night Duck. I thought it would just get overshadowed, but I saw a great explanation on it. I may have talked about this all last week. This joke here, but the greatest joke was that there was no chance of that happening because the Venn diagram of the people that like Bethesda Oblivion RPGs and people that would like Clair Obscura turn-based RPGs is not a flat. It's not a circle. Those circles do not meet for the most part. I'm probably one of the rare exceptions that would play both. But in terms of obsession, they don't meet. And then someone jokingly said, people that like that one type of RPG and people that like, you know, the other type either hate each other or they're married to each other, which is a great opposite attract sort of argument for falling in love. But yeah, so 1 million copies is fantastic, and I hope Sandfall gets to make either a sequel to this. Again, I'm not far enough to know if this even needs a sequel, but like either gets to make a second game in this universe or gets to make their own game, because they seem to be really good at what they do. Like, impressively really good. I didn't dive deep enough into them to know if there are a bunch of executives from elsewhere, or like developers from elsewhere that came together, or if this is like, you know, relative first time people being senior producers and game directors and stuff like that. The best thing is that the soundtrack is, I'm going to buy it day one when it comes out on vinyl. It is the best music to just have on in the background. I had it on the background through Bandcamp while I was cleaning my apartment this weekend. It's just such a great, like, relaxing, sort of, a lot of Lumiere stuff, like the early game stuff. The Bandcamp thing's like 68, 67 songs, something like that. So yeah, thumbs up, Sandfall, and hopefully we see more from that studio. And finally, Sony announced the PlayStation Plus monthly games. Ark Survival Ascendant for PS5, Blatro for PS5, PS4, which means I have to download it for another system. Now that I have it, I had it on my Xbox, and I have it on my phone, and I have it on PC. I do not have it on Switch yet, but I will get it here. And Warhammer 40,000 or 40K Bolt Gun is also coming. Just a reminder that there are 22 games being pulled next month, so be sure to finish them. You can find the list on any gaming website. Well, not Giant Bomb or Polygon, but any other gaming website. So it's Grand Theft Auto 5, Payday 2, Resistance Fall of Man, Night Duck, and Resistance 2. So, yeah. Those are the games coming to and leaving PlayStation Plus. And that will do it for our show. Yes, Game Vault Cat, we are finishing up here. Let's go back to Big Mark. Thank you for joining me again. It's been a fun week. I wish... part of me wishes I had off tomorrow from work so that I could transition this stream right into more Expedition 33. But I need to go to sleep. So, thank you for joining me. We'll be back tonight with Amagon. And then we will have Final Fantasy on Thursday and Friday. Friday I'm not going to be around, so no Friday stream. Saturday and Sunday, definitely Expedition 33. We got to get to the point for the next Deepest Dive part of Min-Max. I've been fucking around doing a lot of side stuff, so I may be behind getting there. And then if I don't have anything to do Saturday night, we'll probably go back to Trails on Saturday night. So, yeah, that is the schedule for the rest of the week. And then News Hour will be about 10:30, 11 o'clock again after Last of Us. So, thank you for joining me. It's been fun as always. And we'll see you next time. Bye.